This ecosystem spent thousands of years building itself. The United States Army Corps of Engineers decided they could improve it in a few months. We're at Elkhorn Slough, California's second largest estuary and the first estuarine sanctuary established in the United States, located along Monterey Bay at Moss Landing. This tidal wetland supports hundreds of species of birds, marine life, and one of the largest remaining salt marsh ecosystems on the California coast. At first glance, Elkhorn Slough feels wild and untouched, but nearly every part of this estuary has been shaped by human decisions. The 1950s and 60s were a time when engineers believed they could improve nature. Rivers were straightened, wetlands drained, and floodplains confined behind levees. The calculations accounted for flood control, navigation, and efficiency, but rarely for the countless ecological relationships that made these systems function in the first place. In 1947, Moss Landing Harbor was dredged and deepened to support California's growing economy. By widening the estuary's connection to Monterey Bay, engineers unleashed stronger tidal currents that began stripping sediment from the marsh. Wetlands that had spent thousands of years building themselves suddenly began eroding away. Nearly 80 years later, scientists are still trying to stabilize the damage. Conservation groups, local volunteers, and marine ecologists like Brent Hughes are helping restore Elkhorn Slough. But the estuary's most effective restoration partner may be the sea otter. After sea otters were nearly eliminated from California, crab populations exploded. The crabs fed on the roots of marsh plants that hold the wetland together, destabilizing marsh banks and accelerating erosion throughout the estuary. Thanks to decades of recovery efforts by groups including the Monterey Bay Aquarium, sea otters have returned to Elkhorn Slough. By keeping crab populations in check, they help protect marsh vegetation and slow the loss of the very wetlands we're trying to save. So why are people still fighting for places like Elkhorn Slough? Why spend decades studying tides, restoring wetlands, and defending places most people never even notice? What drives someone to devote a career to an estuary, or volunteers to spend their weekends planting native vegetation and pulling invasive species? What is it they see here? A sense of responsibility? A love of nature? Maybe stewardship is something deeper than logic. Maybe it's the feeling that some things have value beyond what they can produce, sell, or contribute to an economy. Or maybe it's simply gratitude, the recognition that we inherited a world we did not create, and that we bear some responsibility for what we leave behind. One day, this world won't belong to us. Will the next generation inherit a world they've explored? A world they've learned to appreciate? People rarely protect what they've never experienced, and they rarely love what they've never taken the time to understand. Back at the home lab, we're taking a closer look at one of the most overlooked parts of Elkhorn Slough, the mudflats. We'll learn how tides shape the landscape, how burrowing animals transform the sediment, and why so much life depends on what appears to be nothing more than mud. Then we'll build our own edible chocolate mudflat ecosystem and uncover the hidden world living just beneath the surface. Because stewardship doesn't begin with restoration projects. It begins with curiosity, it begins with wonder, and ultimately, it begins with learning to love the world around us. Visit utopo.com for more earth science adventures and hands-on activities.